over the morning, but we'll get started here. So I want to thank everyone for being here. This is a brand new topic, brand new kind of format that we're going after right now, but it's a conversation that we're really excited to start having, not have once and forget about it, but start and keep the conversation rolling. So over the course of the past couple months, but I would say especially over this past Pride Month, people have been much more open to asking us the questions they have about how they can be more inclusive and the things they can be doing as a business owner, as a staff member, kind of across the board as to how they can just generally be more inclusive. So instead of clumping this in June and kind of just saying, hey, this is another Pride Month, we're starting this in July to kind of, get the rest of the year rolling. So people have this fresh in their mind starting now, not ending at the end of June. So I have a couple of panelists with me today. I have Jared Santek from Right On Door County. I have Sean Gorich and Josh Pletz from Pinky Promise Coffee Roasters. And Steve Makovic from Open Door Pride will hopefully be joining us in a little bit. I know he had a little, some issues come up over the weekend that may delay that. But we're super happy that these four are here. And we're just gonna have a conversation about what it means to be inclusive and how we in the tourism industry can really embrace that and run with this to make this an inclusive place for visitors, for residents, just truly an inclusive destination. So I'm going to have each of my panelists introduce themselves. I'll start with Jared. Jared, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself, your role in Door County, and why you see this conversation as being important. Why is inclusivity important in a tourism-driven area?
Great. Well, thanks for everyone for being here. Happy to have this conversation with you all. I am the artistic director at Right On Door County. And I moved to Door County, to Sturgeon Bay in 2013 to get this organization started. I came here from Minneapolis. I just think that anytime that we have the opportunity to have small, intimate conversations like this about all issues of diversity and inclusivity and share our stories, we just make for a stronger, healthier community. So thank you for organizing this.
Well, thank you for joining us. Josh, do you wanna introduce yourself next?
Sure. I'm Josh Pitts. I am one half of Pinky Promise Coffee Roasters. I'm the nights and weekends technical person. My day job is I'm a software engineer for an online startup. Sean is my husband, and we moved here to Door County about 4 years ago. Have been vacationing here for a very, very long time. And as to why I think inclusivity is important, I honestly think it's an issue. Ethically, it's an important thing and the right thing to do, but to be kind of capitalistic about it, it's also really important for Door County's survival as a tourist destination. We are not the only tourist destination within driving distance of Wisconsin, and a lot of people have branched out over the pandemic to find other destinations they can drive to, and inclusivity is rapidly becoming a bare minimum requirement for people what they look at in their tourist destinations. So I just think it's important to keep us both ethically in the right and competitive.
Cool, thank you, Josh. Sean, good morning. You're on mute though. Let me unmute you.
All right, so Josh already introduced half of us here. I started coming up here when I met Josh, actually. He's been coming up since he was 2. So we've been coming up 25 years. We moved here 4 years ago. When we first started dating and we started coming up here, we weren't comfortable holding hands and doing, anything that even appeared like we were other than just friends. But we've seen that evolve over time. So I think other people are viewing that as well. So the more they feel comfortable, the easier it is to come up and visit, and the more people they will bring.
Perfect. Thank you all for being here. I think this is going to be really great. So we have been kind of keeping a short list of questions that folks have been kind of lobbing our way over the past month or so. I passed it along to our panelists, so they've had these questions ahead of time, but this is really just going to be a conversation. This isn't necessarily an interview. Like I'll throw these questions at you, but please don't attack them in like an interview form. Like have a conversation about it. If anyone else wants to jump in and ask questions, we have an intimate enough group where I feel comfortable doing that. Just let's have a good conversation. Like let's keep it civil. So I guess the first thing that is Josh and Sean, you both kind of talked about this in your introduction. One of the things we hear in our personal lives, in our work lives, is that, you know, only white people, only affluent people are in Door County. We all look the same. Why are we focusing anything on diversity? Why are we focused on inclusivity? We're already inclusive. There are already nice people out here. Why should we even be having this conversation?
I could talk first about that.
Yeah.
I've definitely heard that. I've heard people say we're already diverse, we're already inclusive, so there's no work to be done. I've also heard the thing that like, well, you know, only white people vacation here, so it's like really not a big issue. And the way I think about it is to flip it on its head. What if instead of thinking about only white people vacation here, so we don't have to be inclusive, looking at it as, only white people vacation here, maybe it's because we're not inclusive. I think you see this sometimes in marketing. You see this sometimes in like press stories and photography of the area. It's the classic white nuclear family on the shoreline enjoying a picnic. And that kind of representation like bubbles out in our advertising and our promotion for the county. And it matters a lot. I can't remember exactly what study I was reading, but they were talking about how they did a survey of people of color, tourists, and what they look for at a tourist destination. And the number one answer was representation. And they're looking at advertising and media for that. And so bring that back to Door County, I think we're not doing maybe the best job of it right now. We could always be doing a better job, no matter how great a job we're doing, we always could be doing a better job. And that representation will matter to someone who is looking to vacation to this area that might not have come here before.
I would have to second that. Josh and I sat down and we answered the questions that you sent. Separate
I didn't share my answers with him though.
So I have no idea what he answered. And that is exactly what I wrote, was that it wasn't so much that we are only white, you know, rich people vacation here, but that we aren't being as open and accepting. And if people see that, I mean, I remember seeing, for us and you know, Josh and I in like the gay community, the first time we see like an ad in the paper, like a Target ad, and it was two couples together, like that was a big deal to see that in an advertisement. So, and that's exactly how I thought of this, is like, people aren't seeing this as a place for them to come visit because it isn't being shown as such. You know, having two, you know, gay dads with their kids on the beach instead of just the nuclear family, or, you know, people of color vacationing here, you know, having fun in those same locations that it's being advertised as. So I think like I said, we answered things separately, and yet we get the same.
Yeah, and I would just add to that of the writers in residence that we have awarded this year, 25% of them identify as LGBTQ or as a person of color, which is a pretty significant percentage. And you know, one of those writers did a program for us in spring called Writing Diversity. She's a Cuban American writer from St. Louis. And she said, you know, people often just assume I'm white because I'm very light brown. I have brown blonde curly hair, and they think of me as white and not as Cuban. And that oftentimes leads to difficulties and things that people would say to her. So even though it might look like we're a white Tourist community, don't assume that everyone who looks white is white. Don't assume that, there are a lot of hidden disabilities. I mean, there are just so many things that we don't see and we just make assumptions about. And I completely agree with the advertising, that seeing more diversity in, what, not only what Destination Door County puts out, but what individual businesses put out in the types of people that they represent, what the ads in the Peninsula Pulse look like. I mean, it's just page after page of white face, white face, white face in the Pulse. And, there are just very small ways that we can change things we do to indicate that we are a much more diverse community than people believe us to be.
No, I love those answers. Thank you. That was insightful. But I'm going to take some of that and especially what you had just said, Jared. Oh, we're getting a lot of questions, especially from like the bartender, the server, the cashier side, about why can't I just say, hey ladies, how's it going today? Or hey guys, what's up? How can we kind of backtrack and retrain folks on using some gender neutral language, and why is that important? Why can't I look and say, hey, you look like you appear to be a man, why can't I address you as such? In the same vein, people are seeing pronouns beginning to be added to email signatures or even business cards, LinkedIn profiles. Where is that coming from? How is that something we need to be doing? We meaning the askers of these questions, but is that something that we should be more widespread with? Like what can we do with that, the gender neutral talk and pronouns and all of that? Where should we start?
I think one of the best classes I ever took in college was a class in sociolinguistics, and there was a text for that was titled "Language, the Loaded Weapon." And when you think about the word choices that we make and the way that we phrase things and how really harmful they can be sometimes to other people, it really does give you pause to consider how we speak, what we say, how that might be offensive to other people. I mean, people aren't going to change their speech patterns overnight. I mean, that's just not possible. But to bring more awareness to the fact that the ladies may not be ladies or the guys may not be guys, and you're offending them if you use the wrong pronoun, when it's just as easy to say, how are you folks doing? Or, say folks or people, or just say, how are you? I mean, there's, when you think about it, there are no reasons to say ladies, guys, just in my opinion. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'd also point out that it's not just the person or group that you're addressing, it's other people. It might be other bar patrons. And so if someone is of a mixed gender or does not identify as male or female, and they're overhearing that bartender saying, "Hi, hey ladies, hey guys," all night long, it can kind of passively create an environment where they might not feel comfortable coming back to that business. They might not feel like that they're welcome and included, even though nothing was directed at them directly. It's just overhearing it can create that atmosphere. I should also mention my pronouns are he and him. I did not say that at the beginning. And I will point out, just by me saying that, you're all like, oh, well, should I say my pronouns? Is that something we should all be doing? And I think those are awesome conversations to have. What are the reasons behind giving your pronouns when you introduce yourself, even if you're cis, even if you're born male or female, is to help normalize the conversation about gender. I know for a long time in our culture, there's nothing worse than identifying as male and being referred to as a female, or vice versa. It's kind of like a horrible situation. You want to avoid that. It's a social faux pas that you want to avoid at all costs. And by announcing our pronouns, we're helping to normalize an environment, maybe for someone who does not identify as he or she. And it makes it more comfortable for them to let them know, hey, we're thinking openly about gender. If you're not ready to like tell us your gender, that's fine. But this is an environment where we're not going to be slavish to gender norms, and it's okay.
Gosh, I think you made a really good point of that, where it has more to do with helping the most vulnerable. So there are those that transition that feel very confident in their gender, maybe in the gender norms per se. But we've had the privilege of working with many individuals who are at the very beginning of that travel, that transition, if you will. And the first step is really admitting and saying, this is who I am. Whether they were born male and they know that they are a woman and this is the transition that they're making. It is a very vulnerable and a very dangerous time. So if you think of it as offering a blanket to somebody to say, you know, I see you're a little chilled or afraid, and maybe this is a little comforting. That's what all of this is about. It's not about maybe not offending or per se, but that we're creating a safe space for everybody.
I'd like to jump in and say, you know, this is new to a lot of people. You know, even within our own community, if you want to say it that way, that we're, as far as identifying as and using pronouns and things like that, it's, you know, as being gay has become more acceptable, it's allowed others within the community to feel more comfortable expressing their individuality within the community. So, you know, there's little subgroups, and everybody is on a different, you know, point on that, you know, scale, I guess. So I think we're all getting used to using pronouns and identifying some of that. So the fact that not everybody is using it yet, I mean, it's great that we're having this conversation so early in this transition of and getting the inclusivity out there.
That's great. No, I think that clears up a lot. So how do you guys and I didn't, as I do this automatically, this is not one that I threw on the list, but how would you, I know that, you know, adding those pronouns and just kind of working it in to normalize that conversation. How would you maybe, defend those who are like, no, I don't need to put my pronouns. I look like a guy. People know I'm a guy. How do you recommend having the conversation to maybe get other folks on board, to get other people to see what you just said, but maybe at a more granular level, maybe for your bussers or your cashiers or your coworkers who maybe aren't thinking that way quite yet?
Yeah, that could be rough. I think to kind of try to tie it back to a different question that you haven't asked or talked about yet. I think there's two ways you could go about this. You could have the conversation with the person and you could try to reason with them, or you can try to like win them over and calmly explain these reasons. And then you can play the employer card and like just say like, recognizing that this is a way to refer to customers and guests in our business. We would never, if we had a customer checking in, we would never make comments about their socioeconomic status. We would never make comments about, you know, let's say a single adult with multiple children shows up. We'd never make comments about, oh, you're a single parent. We would never do that. So we shouldn't do that about gender. We should really try not to make any assumptions and use as neutral language as we can to help the customer, help the guest feel at home here. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, if someone doesn't want to use gender inclusive language, I guess I would say, like, what if someone was using racist language on the job? The same kind of tactics and the same kind of discussion you have to have with that person or that employee. It's not acceptable.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Hey, Morgan.
Yeah.
Let me add that. So many of you know me, but for those that don't, I came out much later in life. I was married. I have 2 boys who are very boy-like. They're very rough. There's often those assumptions made, and I think what part of this of creating the comfort level is so important is that what is difficult is when you come out, oftentimes the quote unquote, the enemy, the person who would be most likely to harm you, kill you, or just make you feel really ostracized are the people that look like you. So you're really clearing the playing field of one of the first things you do early on is assess a situation and say, I am less likely to get hurt over here, over there. And that's where the subtleties of the signs, whether like when businesses started putting up like the equal sign for HRC or a little triangle, it can be really subtle, but all of a sudden it lifts the veil and you know that this is a safe space where you can let down your guard as far as being attacked. And the same thing when somebody is putting their pronouns out, if I say he or him, the people that are seeing that know that I have a sensitivity that for me, maybe it's quite obvious because that's just who I am and how I present. But the fact that I've shared that it's he or him for me means that I'm okay with who you are. And I'm also probably more sensitive to racial issues, or whether it's, if you're a same-sex couple or any other diversity, it's one of the signs that shows that you are much more open and less of a threat, in my opinion.
And I just wanted to tack on to that, since Phil mentioned coming out late. I came out in 1982. And so like the way that this conversation has evolved, I mean, back in 1982, it was the LGB community and there was arguments about which letter was going to go first. And then it was a big deal when T was added. And now there's this long string of letters, some of which I still have to look up because I'm not sure. And so, I mean, it's this constant evolution. So if you're feeling like, I don't need to do my pronouns, as like, this is not the right time for me, it's a process. I mean, I was talking with someone the other day who, is a very progressive person. She said she's reluctant to put her pronouns in her email signature line because oftentimes her name can be confused for a man's name. And she feels that in email responses, she's getting quicker responses and more respect from the people who mistake her for being male, and she doesn't want to give that up. Which I thought, well, that's a really interesting and rather sad thing to say, but that's her reality. So, I wouldn't say like, no, you have to do this because this is what everyone's doing, but I will echo what Sean and Josh said. It's just, when you do that in your business signature line, it is just a sense of being open to all possibilities and to all customers.
Yeah, that's terrific. To kind of keep going with that conversation, outside of the pronouns, outside of the neutral language, what are some ways that the frontline customer service staff can make more of an impact? I mean, we talk about marketing plans, we talk about strategic plans, we talk about that top level planning for a business, but then you put sometimes the younger bodies in place that don't always know how they can be an ally in that position. So, I mean, I like to wear my open door pride pin at work. I've got a rainbow flag at my house. What are some like personal empowerment ways that some of the frontline staff can run with?
I could go first. I think a lot of it depends on what kind of frontline position you're working. If you're, say, a front desk at a resort or a hotel, or if you're bartender or server. But the biggest one that I have seen and I have appreciated is when a server is looking out, not particularly just for one guest, but like is also doing that kind of safety check and maintaining a safe and inclusive environment in the absence or if there's not clearly someone that might be affected. So, as an example, someone referring to a group as, hey, you guys, hey, you ladies, stepping in and just referring to them as, hey, you people. And it could be as simple as that. Hey, folks, just putting that pronoun out there, not, drawing the blinds and having a big presentation that second, not, shutting down the bar, being like, okay, everybody, it's time for an inclusive language course right now, but just leading by example. If they're seeing behavior from other guests, from other employees, saying, hey, stop that. That's not cool. Just please knock that off.
I would have to agree, using the neutral language, looking out for, and it's hard and uncomfortable to step in those situations. But I think once you've broken that ice and stepped in that first time and, given support saying, hey, that's not cool. Once you get past that uncomfortableness of having to say that to somebody, there's probably somebody else standing by that feels the same way. They feel like they want to stand up, but are still just as uncomfortable as you are to step in. But once you do step up, they're there to back you up because they feel the same way. They just didn't have the empowerment to do it themselves initially. So once you break that ice and you start to do that and understand that there are other people that want to step in and help support, it'll get easier and easier. And then it just becomes second nature to say, hey, you overhear a conversation where it's, racial or, homosexual bashing, and to be able to say, I'm sorry, but, that's not cool. Or, I'm uncomfortable with you saying something like that, please stop. And once you do that once, it's easier the next time and the next time.
Yeah.
So I think as far as frontline servers,
introvert who just has huge conflict avoidance, stepping in and confronting people about language that they use is really challenging for me. So I think maybe that's one thing the CTA program maybe can consider as a future opportunity or training of how to step in difficult situations and speak up, because for a lot of people that can be really intimidating, and it isn't that they agree with what's happening, they just don't know the best way to speak out. So some training around that for hospitality staff could be really, really wonderful.
I would just one other thing. I would also recommend that hospitality staff, even I know sometimes you don't feel empowered to make any changes in the business. We talked about marketing plans and all these like really high level stuff, but as a frontline employee, you have direct contact with the guests and the customers, and you can be the eyes and the ears for your business. So telling your managers, telling your business about things that you see that are diversity related. Like, for example, we've had a lot of customers lately asking about gender neutral bathrooms, or we've had a lot of customers waiting for the women's bathroom while the men's bathroom is empty. Maybe we could have gender neutral bathrooms. Or we've had a couple customers stop by that are handicapped asking about handicap access. Do we have a plan for them? And we don't. So we had to turn them away. And just phrasing it like that, like we didn't have this for the customers, so they had to go somewhere else, could really go a long way towards opening a business's eyes, be like, oh, we should be doing this because it makes good business sense as well.
I have to say, so directly to that experience, something as simple as our dentist's office said something about, is there anything we can do to improve, et cetera. And there was something where I had used the bathroom, and there's two exact bathrooms, and it was male, female bathroom. And there's the exact same layout design. And again, going back to the introvert, and I wasn't comfortable saying something directly to the dentist, but the staff asked, and I was like, kind of meant to say this, and it would be more inclusive if that was just a bathroom rather than a guys and girls. And I didn't expect it to go anywhere, and yet I had to follow up visit a month later, and sure enough, they had put bathroom, male, female, it didn't matter. It was just a bathroom. So that change was huge. And it was a huge message to me that they were inclusive and responsive and respectful of that opinion and others that were going to be coming to the office. They respected enough that they changed, that part of their business. Something as simple as that means something to people.
Yeah, that's terrific. That's great feedback from all of you so far. Moving along right with that, what are some other ways, moving outside of the personal empowerment level back into more of the management level? What are ways that as a business owner I can visually show you, or this is the same way, like taking that feedback, channeling that feedback, and acting on it? What are ways that I as a business owner can walk the walk and be more inclusive, instead of just maybe hanging a flag or just putting a sticker up? What are some things I can do in my business to give that support and really walk the walk?
I think we all kind of talked about the representation like earlier, and advertising is a big thing. Representation, it really matters. And so if you show people in your ads, in your business, maybe don't use stock photography. Don't try to keep it authentic. And this could be tough too. Like if you're aiming for a more diverse clientele and you don't have that diverse clientele, you don't want to be misrepresenting things, but just trying to be more inclusive and representative in your advertising could really help. I think that's a huge one I've heard from people.
If for our personal experience, like when we've traveled with the kids, it has gotten so much better. I can't even explain what a weight it is off my shoulders and so many people's shoulders to not feel so threatened all the time. The old park the car away from the front window when you go check in, because you didn't know if they're gonna be like, oh, it's terrible. But the vulnerability of having the kids with you, that you want to make sure that you rule out all of the threats at that time. But seeing those little subtle signs, like we said, it doesn't even have to be front and center. I think I'm very proud of the work that we've done with Destination Door County. So a lot of what we're doing it's not always the front spotlight, but you may see 2 guys, 2 women, 2 guys with kids, 2 women with kids, different combinations of people, different ethnicities in the photos. Not sometimes it's front and center, but many times it's just the little nuances in the back, because somebody who wasn't acceptable to that, open to having a gay couple be in their business, I have seen them very clearly get rid of that, because it looks like maybe that those 2 guys might be a couple, or it wouldn't fly for somebody that wouldn't. So if you see some of those little subtle signs, it goes a long way to again just lifting the weight that you're very welcoming property. You don't have to be right out there bright with flying a pride flag, although that goes a long way to make people feel comfortable. But just having the little nuances that give the signs to your customer that you're open and accepting property. So really the bottom line isn't even about catering to anybody. It's really about, we want to be known as a business that is friendly to everybody. Everybody is welcome here is really the bottom line. And you want to convey that.
Back in the day when Brian and I used to be able to travel, I don't know if this site still exists, but we always use purpleroofs.com, which was
it still does.
Is it still going? Good. So that is just a place where LGBT friendly housing establishments, hotels, bed and breakfasts, whatever, can list. And that we only booked with sites that were on there. And that's, you know, that's where we found our first place to stay in Door County on our first visit here. And then that's where we always stayed after that. So, I mean, just like, you know, just getting your place listed on a site like that, or and having referrals of LGBT friendly businesses to refer people if they're guests, if they're asking for a place to, you know, go out for dinner or, you know, something to do. It's you know, just in terms of what management can do and to provide to their staff to help LGBT customers, that would be a huge step. It, you know, like Phil said, it doesn't have to be the flag all the time. I mean, here at the center, we have no flags of any kind. We have no way to put flags up actually, but it's just the culture of our organization is such that when people come in, whoever they are, they know that they're welcome here. And as management, if you just cultivate that environment in your own workplace, people are going to feel that the minute they walk in.
I know one of the questions you had on there, Mo, was like, how can somebody, I think one of it was an owner has a trans person working for them, and what can they do to support them? And, you know, you're asking what can management do or what can the staff do? And this is, so how best can they support them depends on who that trans person is and where they're at in their transition and how comfortable they are. But I think the main thing is to ask that person, how can they be supported? How can, you know, whether it's, you know, do they want you to step in and help? Some of the, I mean, I've had conversations where people have just come out and asked. They don't quite understand being gay, so they've asked me, you know, hey, do you mind if I ask you some questions? I don't understand. And, you know, I'm heterosexual, but they want to understand what it is to be gay, or what does that mean, and how did that happen? And, you know, I really appreciated the fact that they had the courage to ask that question. And it was very easy for me to answer that question then, because they had asked it so hesitantly, I guess, and you knew that they really wanted to understand, so they were sincere about it. So I think that's one thing that kind of lends to how do, you know, if you don't understand it, if you've only grown up, again, I probably didn't come out quite as late as Jared or Philip, but I was, you know, mid to late 20s before I even accepted. I just grew up in a heterosexual environment. And, you know, you, again, going back to those things that you hear, right? You don't quite feel comfortable in allowing yourself to even think those thoughts at a younger age, when you had all those things being said around you, or it's just normalized. The heterosexual life is just normalized. So I think being able to ask somebody those questions to further your understanding of the other, right? Because it's for them to start, it's an other relationship. You know, it's not quite normalized. So, but then once they understand it, they find out it's totally normal.
It's a great honor to be asked, to be, you know, anytime somebody moves from judgment to curiosity, there isn't a greater compliment. And I've been approached, heck, even by extended family that like took us aside and said, "You're the first gay that I ever met." And I'm like, oh, yeah, maybe not. But, you know, that people are in that space, I was thrilled that, like, look, let's have at it. I'll let you know if you're asking a difficult question. I'll let you know. Are you sure? Is this what you're asking? And I've had the really hard questions from my mother. But it's to be able to answer them and to clear up. Listen, it's not taught to us in school either. All of this is new, just how you move through life. And for us, we've just had to figure it out because there was a consequence. And that's really what all the discussion is about, lifting the consequent part.
I think that's a good attitude for organizations to have as they try to become more inclusive, is to just to have an honest discussion and to say, as an organization, we're going to make mistakes. We're going to get this wrong. We're going to say something, we're going to do something that isn't going to be quite right, or is going to be flat out wrong. And that shouldn't prevent you as an organization from trying. That's how we all get better. So, you know, to Philip's point, we don't come into this world knowing all these social nuances, and they're changing rapidly. So just admitting, as a company or as an organization, it's going to take us some time. We're going to make some missteps, but we're going to learn from those and we're going to get better. And that right there will help you get a really long way improving your inclusivity efforts.
And not just with the gay community either. It's like, I mean,
everyone,
I was in service. I was stationed at a temporary duty assignment with a Black man, and I was oblivious to how much racism was out there. I just accepted, you know, he was my friend, he was my coworker. We, you know, went out and had a good time. And, you know, there was some information on the news that was, you know, discussing racism and how, you know, bad it was. And we were both getting ready to work that night. And I looked at him and I was like, you know, is this still really a problem? And the look on his face just told it all. I mean, the shock that I wasn't seeing what he was experiencing. And it was after that the next time we went out that I saw how bad it was. The looks that he would get when we would walk through a store or walk to the hall, like all of a sudden my eyes were opened. So it's not just the gay community, it's, you know, how people, you know, look because there's a Black person, and how they watch and follow them, or, you know, it's pretty amazing how those subtle, I mean, it's not the outright racism comments always, it's the subtle comments as well. And, you know, for both, you know, people of color and the gay community.
I think, you know, that just having the opportunity at staff meetings or whatever other situations are to be able to share stories. I mean, you know, United Way just concluded, what, about a month ago, Amy, the 20-week challenge on discussing racism. I know that for a lot of organizations that I've been involved with, those weekly readings were brought to staff meetings to have conversations and people sharing stories. And of course, you know, this is what we're all about at Right On, that the power of sharing stories to change lives and to change ways of thinking. So, you know, if there's an opportunity through staff meetings just to have these conversations that, you know, the 20-week challenge inspired, or just, you know, come up with your own. And I think that the 20-week challenge is going to be repeated.
Yep, thanks, Jared. So United Way of Wisconsin hosted the 21-week equity challenge based on the 21-day equity challenge. And we just wrapped that up a few weeks ago, but we'll be doing another one mid-August through mid-January. But if people want to poke around and see those resources now, they're on the United Way of Wisconsin website, and you can just search for the 21-week equity challenge. And we've gotten good reviews on the resources that have been out there. And that just starts that equity conversation, whether we're talking about race, ethnicity, or if we're talking like today around, you know, people who identify differently in their gender, or people that may have questions. It helps them be a little more confident on how to start that conversation too. What I've told my staff is we have to be vulnerable, right? We're all white in my office, and we have to just say, I'm sorry. I might say something wrong. I might offend you. and put yourself out there as vulnerable to start that conversation. And I think that's what you were saying, Josh, as well. You know, when someone says, I don't understand, can you help me? Making yourself vulnerable is the first challenge, and understanding anything that you may think is different than you.
The curiosity is the key. That when I have a family member that has transitioned, and my mom, I just couldn't love her more. She's everything that she's thinking, you've heard it before she does. And so it comes right out, but she's really good at the questions of what is this, and trying to figure it out. And in her acceptance, just trying to figure out how does this work? And it threw her for a loop that a cousin that transitioned from female to male he's not a gay man. He's a straight trans man. And she had to wrap it, and I said, this is just how they relate to the world. This is how they fit into the world. Doesn't have to do with anything else. Doesn't have to do with you. This is how they interact with the world, and how they're able to be their best person because they are themselves instead of trying to function as somebody else. So just the curiosity part. And as far as transitioning goes, if anybody's looking for a little, like if you're feeling that vulnerability of this is an uncomfortable topic or whatnot, Brian Kelsey at Peninsula Players, my husband, has handled this with tremendous grace on several occasions. They've had a lot of different individuals who have transitioned there and dealing with not only just transitioning, but also living arrangements, different accommodations, or the need for not having special accommodations, or the communication between staff. And really, it always boils down to the communication of asking. People are never offended when you open up your vulnerability and ask them for their insight, even if you know some of it, just to open up that dialogue so that they know that you're a safe place.
I would also point out, we were talking about, concrete things that businesses could do and dealing with staff. I have been to several inclusivity workshops, some a day long, some an hour long. And especially during the pandemic, every single one of those organizations knows how to run training sessions over Zoom. It's completely doable to have your staff attend a 1 hour inclusivity or, acceptance training. We do it with safety gear. We do it, with food safety. We do it with alcohol serving. To Jared's point, as language is a weapon, we could be doing it with inclusivity as well. And there are tons of organizations out there online that can do that. You don't have to limit yourself to something just in, Door County.
No, that's all terrific. I'm going to hijack one of the questions here a second, because I had originally asked what are some ways that one can support pride, diversity, and inclusion, all year round, once Pride Month is over. It's very easy to show your support for June, and then July 1st hits and the rainbow goes away. But I really like how this conversation has taken a turn to those other resources. So Amy, I loved the 21-week diversity challenge. There's some really good stuff happening in the comments right here from Paula. And if anyone wants to chime in, and Paula, you added a really great link, and I'm sorry, it's We Are Welcome. We Welcome All. Is that the name of the organization? Paula, if you have a microphone, feel free to pipe up. I'd love to hear from you and your thoughts on this.
Hi, this is Paula Christensen from We Welcome All, and I jumped in late, so I'm not going to show my video because I wasn't aware that this was happening. But anyway, yes, it was an organization, or not organization, it's just a loose collaboration of organizations in Northern Door County, but it does include PFLAG and Civility Project of Door County, and 4 other churches. Unitarian Universalist Church is the one that started it, And then we have 3 other churches that are funding it. So it's a secular initiative. It's not a religious-based initiative, but we wanted to do something that was positive about welcoming. Instead, we started it really in like 2016 when there was so much strife in the killings of Black people as well as gay people that summer. And we wanted to do something positive. And so we came up with this. Actually, it came out of Surge Standing Up for Racial Justice in Appleton, but we adopted it, and we go in really cold call to businesses and ask if they want to participate in posting our window cling. And we designed it with a heart of many colors, and it just says, "We welcome all." And they post it on their doors or windows, and it means we welcome all diversities, and that the business will do whatever they can to accept and welcome everyone. And like I said in the post, we have close to 100 businesses up in mainly Northern Door, because that's where many of us live and many of our organizations are. But I know that there are people in the Sturgeon Bay area that have been a part of this. And it's been kind of on hold for the last couple of years, partly because of COVID and other things, but we do want to initiate, contacting businesses. And I don't know if there's a way that we could partner with Destination Door County or any other larger group, because I think that this is something that the owners of the businesses that we've talked with said that they just feel like it expresses their values, that it's a way of, one owner said to me, "I walk into my business and I see 'We welcome all' on my door or my window every day. And it reminds me of my values. And it reminds me that this is how I want to be in the world." And then it also gives the messages out to other people who are their customers. And so it's a really exciting, and it really expresses values. And I think it's like you were talking about some of the other external signs that people can give to show people that they are welcoming. And we'd love to, find a way. I know Right On Door County has, I don't know if you have one on your new building now. I can give you another one, Jared. But, that I just think it's a great way of expressing to people that they are welcome. And, we think, I don't know, some people think that that's obvious. We have had a few businesses turn us down, which always has surprised me. But I do think it's an external way to say that we welcome everyone. And then the question is, how do we walk the talk? And you've been talking about a lot of that. So thank you for the opportunity to participate. And I put my the We Welcome All Gmail in the chat. And so if you want to contact me through that, I'd be happy to talk with you more.
Yeah, I absolutely will, Paula. And this recording will be shared too. So anyone who's watching, you'll be able to share this information, and also I'll touch base and follow up with all the things we're talking about. But it's lots of really great information so far. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Yeah. A little bit more technical. Does my business need an anti-discrimination policy? Now that we're talking about the nitty-gritty, the boxes to check. Does my business need that? If it doesn't need it, should I put one anyways? Like, what's the pros? Are there any cons? Is that something people can be exploring? That's one that we've gotten a little bit of an influx in lately. Is it something people should be thinking about? Is it something that they should have been thinking about years ago and never did? Where are we at with that?
I think that every business, every organization should have an anti-discrimination policy. Kind of the thought that in 2021 that any business wouldn't have one is just kind of shocking to me. I've never worked at a place that hasn't had one. But then again, I've never worked at like small. I've been in nonprofits almost all of my work life. So if you don't have one, you should, and you should always be checking it. It's, you know, it's an evolving process. And I also think, you know, one of the things that we have on our website are, in addition to an anti-discrimination policy, is our organizational value statements policies, which have, you know, about a statement on immigrant lives matter, Black lives matter, on and on, our land acknowledgement, statement on Asian hate. Having those statements on our website is one of the reasons that we have 25% of the residencies that we have awarded be to marginalized communities, because they see those values, they know that they're respected here, that their voice matters here, and that this is going to be a comfortable place for them to come and stay for a week or a month and work on their writing projects. So, you know, having such things out there on your website can really bring you more business. And if you just want to look at it in a completely commercial marketing way, but just in terms of sharing your core ethics with your staff and with the larger community, I think it's absolutely necessary.
I would have to agree. It doesn't have to be necessarily a lengthy document. I think for a lot of smaller businesses, just putting in a couple of sentences, just stating your like non-discriminatory, you know, otherwise, how are you going to enforce it? I mean, if that's what you value in your business, and that's across the board, whether it's racial or towards people as to how they identify, you're not going to be able to enforce it in any manner if you don't have some type of policy. So, you know, even a few sentences stating, you know, that you have that as part of somebody's employment, you know, you're going to need at least something there to back it up.
Hey, I'm sorry, go ahead, John.
No, you go ahead. I'm sorry.
If I could jump in, you know, one of our opportunities, I think, as an organization at Destination Door County is to continue to promote educational opportunities like this and others, because, you know, it's one thing for us to put on our site, for example, you know, statements that show that we're accepting of all and all those sorts of things. So then if a person comes to Door County and maybe sees that on our site, but then has a negative experience at a local business, or maybe from even a comment from another visitor that goes against maybe what they saw when they were planning a trip, you know, that's a struggle for us, and it's a potential issue. So I think the more, and you know, from a visitor standpoint and educating our visitors, that's a tough one. But at least we can try our best to continue to offer opportunities for dialogue and for conversation, just like today, to try to help our business community to understand the importance of being welcoming to all. And to, you know, it could be, again, subtle things like a lot of you have mentioned about, you know, maybe, you know, putting something about we welcome all in our partner newsletter, or, you know, maybe coming up with a one-page sheet on maybe how to approach dealing with a difficult situation. But it's the little things I think that we can do as an organization to help our community keep moving forward and keep being more inclusive as we go on, and understand and making it understandable, or, you know, helping people understand that it's okay to be that way. And if their friends maybe aren't, that, you know what, that's okay. We're all moving in this positive direction. And I think that's one way that I see us as an organization trying to help continue that conversation and continue moving us forward.
I was just going to point out that I am not a lawyer, But there are federal non-discrimination guidelines that you have to follow depending on how many employees your organization has. But reaching a little bit beyond that, maybe if you are smaller and reaching for the non-discrimination policies of a larger company, and expanding those to cover things that the federal non-discrimination laws cover, they could really help clarify both to the public and your employees what your policies are. Like, we had a conversation previously where we were talking about, what should I do if an employee is, not on board with our, inclusivity efforts? If it's part of your company's policy, it's a lot easier to point to that and say, look, as a company, as an organization, we've codified what we agree about, what we believe in. Here it is. Take it or leave it, frankly, as an employee. It also helps signal to potential employees and potential customers what you believe in as a business.
Those are great. That's fantastic. So that was the bulk of the questions that we had gathered prior. I will open this up to anyone who'd like to ask questions for you. It's a pretty small group. There is a question in the comments, but in what ways does Destination Door County, or businesses reach out to those who are Black or Brown to communicate that they are welcome as well? From Paula. John, is that one that maybe you can help with?
Yeah, I can certainly address that, and anyone else at our office, at the DDC, is welcome to chime in too. One of the things I think that we've tried to do is just show, and this has been mentioned earlier, to just show other people that are here, and so in a lot of our materials and the photo shoots that we've done, I think we have made a conscious effort to try to get talent that looks like the world does, not just like a lot of Door County does. Early on, now this is 12, 13, 14 years ago, believe it or not, and probably believe it, we did get pushback with that, especially the first one that I remember. I know, Phil, I see you're shaking your head yes, because it was true, and it was kind of disheartening for us at the time, like, really?
And we didn't expect it, so it was an ambush. It was like, oh my God.
Yeah. So I think some attitudes have shifted since then, but that's one thing that we've tried to do to address that, and trying to get people that look like the world. Now, one challenge with that is that if you do show African Americans, for example, and somebody may see that and think, oh, they're and they come up here and maybe don't see as many as they thought because they saw a couple of pictures in our destination guide that showed people of color, right? So that's another side of it, I think, that that is out there. But I think it's our responsibility, frankly, to try to do that in the materials that we're putting out there, to show a wider pool of what the world looks like. And again, it may be subtle, but I think it helps to show that everyone is welcome in Door County as far as we're concerned. Again, then it gets back to the concept, or what I said earlier about, okay, they see that and they feel that they're welcome here, then they come up here and have a negative experience in one way, shape, or form. But that's one small thing I think that we've done and we'll continue to do, certainly.
And I'll chime in. What John is saying is we've worked really hard to be very authentic about it. We don't have a visually diversified crowd that comes up here often. So we went from hiring talent to be able to be more inclusive in our advertising. We have done a tremendous amount of that, actually, but trying to be also authentic about it. And there was a phase as social media became a thing, because we've been around for a long time, we started utilizing more of the crowdsourcing photos, which brought us some amazing snapshots into authentic moments in the county that you can't capture through a photo shoot. The problem was that they were being very true in the fact that, holy cow, there's just a lot of white people here. That is like, it's hard to get rid of, it's hard not to have somebody in a photo shoot. And we have received numerous complaints from individuals that felt like we did a bait and switch of saying, you know, it's a diversified area, and coming up here and felt very vulnerable that they were alone. And I know I can relate this from personal experience that it can be an odd. Now I had plenty of practice moving through straight society. That was fine. So I can operate that, but sometimes if you're in a situation where you just feel like if they found out you were gay, that would be that. And there are moments when you feel that vulnerability. And I've had friends who happen to be, you know, more ethnically diverse, that you can, you know, that their skin is brown or whatnot, that they have expressed, this is when I feel really awkward. And other friends don't have that problem, but we each have individual experiences, and that's really where it goes back to the curiosity of the individual, and to do what we can to be more welcoming by doing the little signs that, yes, you are welcoming. Yes, you are a welcoming business. Oftentimes it feels like, do I need to do anything else? I feel like I'm being my best self. I'm being my best. We don't discriminate against anything. Sometimes it's hard to see that. And for the individual that feels vulnerable, you're talking about a risk that could mean their life. So that's what it's up against. This might not seem like anything, but you put your life in your hands by going to a business that hates you for a discrimination, and you don't know it. So dispelling that fear is what a lot of this is about, of being that welcoming business, by whether it's having your inclusivity statement on your website. It doesn't have to be front and center, but if somebody is concerned and they do a Google search and they can find that you have a non-discrimination clause for your employees, that's a huge hint that they have a culture that is going to be welcoming to you as a customer. And believe me, we do those searches.
One other quick thing that I'll throw in about, at least that we've done at DDC, with our public relations program, we've gone and made sure to try to invite journalists of all different backgrounds that write for all different types of publications, to make sure that we're able to offer and showcase Door County to their audiences, whoever they may be. So that's another thing that we've tried to reach out to as well. There's certainly publications across the whole spectrum that try to reach a bunch of different groups, and we've tried to go after a lot of those. So
I would have to jump in. I know, going back to the vulnerability, there's like a few years back when we started getting involved in the Gay Pride in Sturgeon Bay here, you know, we were going out and soliciting businesses to display our sticker, you know, Open Door Pride sticker. There were some businesses that we knew were gay friendly, and yet they were hesitant to display a sticker because they were afraid that it was going to maybe hinder the business that they would receive. And I think, you know, having in this group and this, you know, being pushed through Door County to help businesses understand more, it's weird correlation, but it sort of goes back to like when smoking was being debated, whether it was going to be banned from restaurants, et cetera, et cetera. Well, businesses were afraid that by banning cigarettes in their business, that it was going to hinder business. And then it turns out it actually expanded. There were a lot of people that weren't going out to those businesses because they were allowing smoking. And so it had the reverse effect, what they were fearing. They were fearing that they were going to lose a bunch of business. So I think the same correlation could be made with, by showing, you know, by getting businesses to show its support, you're going to see more people coming because they're going to feel more comfortable in coming into a businesses that with a subtle little sticker on their door saying we're friendly. And that could be whether it's Open Door Pride or, you know, we welcome all. I love that sticker. I want to get one from my window. But so that kind of lets everybody know that it's a safe space. So I think as that we discuss this more and more, I think more and more businesses will be open and accepting of, having those statements out there.
Ooh, a couple good things coming through the comments. Yeah, again, if anyone has questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask or pop it into the chat. But in the chat right now, Paula has added Just Door County is a nonprofit that has an incident report form for discriminatory events that happen. No name, no blame, no shame, found on their Facebook page. I believe they've been around for a couple of years. I've seen that form passed around. That's a really great resource. And Kim from Raleigh's Bay Resort, also Novel Bay Books. Before she even started working there, the owners purposely curated books that represented diversity, inclusivity, and humanity. There are 4 booksellers now, and we continue to curate our selection as such. I'm very proud of them and to work there. That's actually a really good. I love, like, personally, when I am out and about and I see a rack of, LBGT authors where a portion of those funds go back to an organization or a resource that helps that community, I'm a big fan of that personally as a consumer. So I did not know that Novel Bay did that. That's terrific to see.
Hey, I just want to jump in. Morgan, thank you for your efforts with this, to Phil for doing the meeting, and to our panelists. Thank you. I've got to run to another appointment, but so continue the conversation. But thank you to everyone for being here today. I thought this was really great. So
Thanks,
happy
John.
Tuesday, everybody.
Thanks, John.
Okay. No more questions. If anyone? No? Yes? If not, Sean, Jared, Josh, if any of you have any final closing thoughts just to send us on our way with, that'd be great. Just let us know what else can we be doing? What should we be taking away from this? What can be our next, like, immediate next step to internalize some of this?
I think just keep the conversations going and be open to discussions with your staff, and you know where to find us if you have questions, or if you would want a presentation to staff or whatever might be helpful. I mean, there are a lot of people in the county who would be very happy to help.
Yeah, I would second that. Very well said, Jared. There's lots of help available. Talk to your staff. Just keep talking. Don't shut down communication. That's the number one thing I've learned, is to just keep talking through any discomfort or any questions you might have as a business owner, or any uncertainty. If you just keep the communication lines open, you're going to get to a much better place.
I have to second what Phil had said earlier. It's, a lot of people are hesitant to ask the conversation. They either, are afraid they're going to offend, or it's just their own vulnerability. But it really is an honor to be able to be approached and be the one that they feel comfortable to ask questions. So I think helping people understand, that we're really not any different than everybody else. We have trouble getting up in the morning. We have trouble with kids, or it's all the same problem. You've got laundry to do. You got dishes to do. We're all the same. It's just like we're not another, and then helping somebody understand that you're not an other, and we're just another part of the community, and really love to answer those questions. So if you want people, like Jared was saying, and there's plenty of people to ask, and we're just need to be asked, and sure we'll be willing to share that information.
And go ahead, Amy. Go ahead.
I appreciate all that you guys have done and shared today. For those of you who don't know you, I know all of you, but for those of you who don't, could you put your email addresses in the chat so people know how to contact you? Thank you.
I was going to mention, just as an example, sometimes if anybody, I'll put this out there, and probably it feels like the rest of you guys feel the same way. My door is always open. As they had said in the forum, there's no shame, no blame. If you're curious, you contact me and say, hey, can I ask you a few questions? I'm going to think a whole lot more of you for asking those questions than I am that you were afraid to ask or had to stay in the dark about. But even something as simple as asking, what are the things that can be off-putting that as a society, we don't realize that we're just being friendly, but we're actually being exclusionary in our talk or whatnot. One of the things, I grew up in a very Christian family. We happened to be Catholic, but didn't matter. But I often shared that the sheer fear that used to just travel through my being when I would see a Christian fish symbol. Now, I grew up with that being a hopeful, happy thing, but it became a license to kill. I'll just be frank that it still is when you see somebody lead with that. Unfortunately, it doesn't mean I'm a happy hugger that I'm going to welcome you. It's important. It's okay if I think that's very cool if you want to express the fact that you're Christian or whatnot. But if you're being very forward with some of those symbols, you need to balance it. And that's where I said, if you have a Christian fish symbol on your business, maybe you want to make sure there's an HRC equality sign or some other little, maybe it's a pride flag, maybe it's just any other thing like that, that balances to say, okay, friendly Christian. And that might seem weird. And again, my family is very religious, and that was a painful thing for me to go through. It's something I still struggle with. A few members of the family that are very, very ultra conservative, but I also know that most Christians are very open, very welcoming, and don't care. I'm not asking you to be gay. I'm not asking for your permission or anything else, but if you can at least let me know that you're not going to discriminate against me, that's a very important tool. So if you want to have that dialogue of, hey, these are some things I just want to throw past you. What do you think of this? I'm just going to offer my honest opinion and or experience. No shame whatsoever.
And just to reiterate, because I mean, here are these four panelists. We're all four white gay guys. So, but even though we all look kind of, this, we're all of one, we have very different experiences, and, our whole process of coming out and what we've experienced in our lives. Like Sean and Josh have a child. Phil has, I have no children. Yeah, I mean, there's so many differences. So yes, we're happy to speak any time that you would like it, but it's only our individual story we can bring. We can't bring the whole big gay story to you and say, here it is, but we can share our own story.
That's terrific. And then in the comments, in the chat, Kimberly made another really good point, again with Phil. As a cis het white women, which I also identify as, I don't always catch on to these things, but it's just another reminder to just be responsible, to pay attention. We all have that responsibility to just be cognizant of what messages our actions are actually sending. So I'm in the same boat as you, Kimberly. Well, terrific. If there's does anyone have anything else they want to share or bring to the table this morning?
I did want to say one last thing. This didn't come up in the conversation, but I've heard this from other business owners. I've heard them say, I don't want to get political. I don't want to be involved with politics. We're just going to stay out of politics. And I just mentioned that because that might be something that someone watching this broadcast or has heard this conversation has come up. And the only thing I could really say to that is there's a definite difference between voting and intrinsically what makes a person. And when you think about different actions your business takes, I think you need to ask yourself, are we taking this action because of a belief we have about representation and how government acts? Or are we taking this action because of a belief about what intrinsically makes up a person and what attributes or characteristics they're born with. And I didn't come up with this concept. This is a legal definition of, bases for discrimination in protected classes. But I would just throw that out there, that taking a stand again for diversity and for inclusion does not have to be a political stance. And a lot of times you can hide behind a defense of, I don't want to get political, but maybe think about like who you are and what your benefits and what your privileges are that let you bow out of a political discussion. And then think about the groups that you're thinking of. Can they also do that? Can I, as a gay man, say, I don't want to be political, so I'm not going to talk about gay stuff? I can't, because my very existence is political if we're defining politics as sexual orientation or gender identity or race. So I just want to throw that out there because I've heard that.
Silence is hostility. So for anybody who feels like they want to step out of the conversation, your silence is hostile. You're the enemy. You are presumed the enemy in that case because you're a threat, because we don't know where you stand on things. And that's okay if that's the position you want to take, but your silence doesn't absolve you from that. It actually lumps you into it, unfortunately. Morgan, thank you so much for putting this together.
Thank you.
I've appreciated
Thank you.
sharing.
Thank you, Jared. Thank you, Josh.
input.
Thank you, Sean. Phil, everybody who has spoke up today. This has been fantastic. And like I mentioned at the beginning, this is the first, this is not the only. So this conversation will keep going. I have a whole list of the next programs I'm going to do based on this conversation, dealing with those difficult situations, maybe having another one towards, people of color and how we can be more welcoming in that particular population. So lots of really great ideas. My email is morgan@doorcounty.com. Feel free, if you have ideas, if you have anything to follow up, if anyone wants to touch base or work together in the future, send me a line right away. I would love to continue this conversation with all of this. I'm really excited that all of you showed up and to have this conversation on a Monday or a Tuesday after a holiday weekend. So thank you. That's all I have. I appreciate you all being here. If there's nothing else, I will send you all to have a wonderful Tuesday.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good one.